if I traded it all.
Welcome back, everyone. I am so excited about bringing on my next guest. I can't wait to talk to her about her. But we right now are going to say live on Facebook here at KFNX, and so we're going to be sharing the show afterwards. I have with me Caryn Kommers, and she is the broker associate with Bold Realty. And what is the other one that you are with? Is it just Bold Realty?
Yep, okay. Bold Realty.
So you got to tell me, you were here once before, and after you were done, you said, Carol, I really want to talk about real estate. I want to teach people about real estate. You've been doing this how long?
I've been doing it a little over 24 years.
And so, what are we going to talk about today?
We're going to talk about the 5 ways that a buyer could get out of a residential real estate contract. So buyers are worried, what if I fall in love with the house? What if I've now got earnest money down on the table with the escrow company? And what if something's wrong? Oh my gosh, am I going to lose that money? Our contract here in Arizona has 5 ways that you can get out, legal ways that you can legitimately use to get out of a contract. There's a few other minor ones, but these are the big ones.
Before we talk about that, I want to talk about you. You said you've been doing this for 24 years.
Yes.
And you're valley-wide?
Yes.
Okay. And when people look you up, they go to boldrealtyaz.com. Do you also do free consultations with people?
I do. I do for sellers and for buyers.
Okay. So some of sellers and buyers.
Some of the stuff we're going to talk about today is some of the stuff that I put into that buyer consultation conversation.
Well, and we want to talk about what that is, because I remember that from the last time. Explain to them how you work, because you are unbelievably passionate about what you do, but you want them to completely understand from basically soup to nuts what they're getting into.
I think it really sets people into a place where it's a lot less stressful when they know what's coming up. They also feel like if they have more questions, because it's complicated. There's a lot of ducks that have to get all in a row to make a real estate transaction come down. And when you ask your friends, ask 5 people on the street right now, 6 of them are going to say, oh my gosh, buying or selling a house was like the craziest, most stressful thing I did. And one of the things I felt was knowledge gives people a sense of comfort and a sense of, okay, not only does that make it clear in their mind that I'm the person they can trust to get them through this process, but it also empowers them to realize what's coming next.
Right.
And they're not surprised.
Right. So they're more comfortable with the whole process. So 5 ways for a buyer to get out of a contract. Number 1, due diligence inspection.
And what's funny about this 5 things, Carol, is I do this in front of my clients. I'll go, hold my hand up. I'm counting 5 fingers up in the air. I say, there are 5 big ways that you can get out of this contract if we need to, and I'll walk you through them. And I do due diligence inspection, loan approval, appraisal, HOA, and title. And as we go through things later on in the transaction, somebody will ask me, well, when do I get the homeowners association information? Remember, that's one of the 5 things. So the 5 comes up in front of people a lot. But that number 1 is due diligence and inspection. Our Arizona contract gives the buyer an opportunity that even after they fall in love with the house, they've decided on a price, that we've got the closing date, everything's rolling along, they have an opportunity to investigate all things that are important to them. Most buyers start as a basic with a home inspection, professional home inspector, and a termite report, because we have termites here in Arizona. Every home either has them or they will. And beyond that, I want them to investigate schools. I want them to investigate crime stats. If it's important to them to know how far the commute to the airport is, I want them to know that. If it's important to them to know, about registered sex offenders in the area, I want them to look at all of that. Sometimes people want their children to be able to play in the cul-de-sac. Well, then I want you to be there on a Saturday afternoon in January when everybody else is in the cul-de-sac. That's when you find out, oh, these people have kids, those people have kids, or you've got some crabby neighborhood guy who doesn't want any of you playing in the neighborhood cul-de-sac. Right. So you need to learn that.
Do you do all of this work for them? How do they do this due diligence that you're talking about?
So as a general rule, they are on their own doing it. But I have this exact conversation, and it starts putting little ideas in their minds about, oh, hey, schools are important to us. Oh, hey, that is important to us.
So that's in that consultation where you're talking to them and saying, hey, I want you to know everything about this area. What's important to you? Is that kind of how you do that?
What's important to you, and then I have a little checklist that we get from the Arizona Association of Realtors. It is I call it, it's our buyer advisory, but I call it no stone unturned. There are 7 pages of websites that address everything related to Arizona real estate. HOAs, crime stats, fissures, expansive soils, flood insurance. It goes down the entire list of everything, and a buyer can really look through that, and that will jog their memory into, oh, maybe we should look into this, and it gives them a place to go get the information.
Now, number 2 is loan approval.
Yep, loan approval. If you are saying to the seller, we're going to buy your house, and in order to do that, we need to get a loan, but if... And I never put words to any of the big bad nasties that might be all the reasons you don't get a loan approval, so I just leave it at, if zombies ever took over the world and you couldn't get the loan, you'd want to know that if we properly notified the seller, that we could get you out of it. You get your earnest money back, no harm, no foul. It's a legal way that you can get out of that contract.
Now, your phone number is 602-373-0115. Your website is boldrealtyaz.com. She's valley-wide. She loves to talk about this to everybody. She's here to basically to educate everybody out there. Yes, she's a real estate agent, and yes, she helps both buyers and sellers. But to understand everything is so important to her, and that's what you're here for. And I love the way that we're talking about this. There's things here that I've never heard before. And I bet a lot of people aren't as meticulous as you are about bringing up all these points.
I would say that 99, maybe plus % of agents never have this conversation with their buyers. And by the way, I have it with my sellers too, because as a seller's getting into a contract, it's good for a seller to know all the ways that the buyer could be getting out of the contract too. Seller needs to know also.
Right.
It's funny because a lot of times I have this conversation with a new client over a cup of coffee or a cup of lemonade or something in a restaurant, and many times a person from a lending space or an escrow title space will just lean over as they're getting up with their coffee and say, I just want you to know, I don't know of any other real estate agent who does this kind of thing. You, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, are in a really good place.
Oh, that's really neat.
Really
that's
fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So again, you can check her out on her website. It's boldrealtyaz.com. Her phone number is 602-373-0115, and she's valley-wide. Okay, let's go to the next one, the appraisal.
So when a buyer is getting a loan to buy the house, the contract is also contingent upon an appraisal. And our contract says that the buyer's obligation to complete the sale is contingent upon the appraisal acceptable to the lender coming in for at least the price that the seller and the buyer have agreed to. So what that means is if the appraisal comes in low, the buyer can walk. They really can just notify the seller properly. We have forms for that. Let them know, I'm done. The sales isn't going through. But typically what happens is the buyer still wants to buy, the seller still wants to sell, and we have to go back to the table and negotiate. Sometimes that is the seller comes clear down to the appraisal. Sometimes it is the buyer goes clear up to the original sales price and brings in more cash. Sometimes it is we meet in the middle. So there's ways to solve it. But it is a real out that, and the seller has no say in that. If the appraisal comes in low and the buyer says, I want out, seller can't say anything about it.
So why is it so important to talk about the 5 ways people can get out of a contract when you're trying to keep the contract?
I think it gives people that sense of, at the beginning when you just have seen the house, you love the house, and you think you love the house, you still don't know anything about the whole process. And I think by knowing how the whole thing goes along, it gives people this sense of comfort, the sense of, okay, at least if something goes sideways, we're not losing our earnest money that we have on the table, and we can get out legally.
And also, it seems to me, too, that you're making sure that you're not good at, like for when the people that are selling, that you're helping with them or what have you, the buyer, you are making sure that all of their T's, all of the stones are unturned, right?
Yes.
And that you are crossing all your T's and dotting all of your I's, making sure that these deals go through.
Yes.
That's the other part of that. We're going to go to a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk further. Our number here, I'm going to go, we don't have anything here today that we're giving away, so we're going to go right to her number. It's 602-373-0115. It's boldrealtyaz.com.
For trading it all, if I gave
So welcome back, everyone. And we are talking with Caryn Kommers. She is the broker associate with Bold Realty. And we've been talking at the break. She's going to have her own radio show. I know she's going to have her own radio show. And you know what's really great? We'll have people calling in and kind of telling them their stories and what they've dealt with and how you can help them. Because there's a lot of people out there right now. You told me when I first, well, the second time that you're coming on, when I was talking, you said, I want to come on in July. And there was a reason why. Why?
Because there are people right now who are getting through schools to be, kids into school, vacations and whatever, but now they're starting to think about buying or selling a home in the fall. And
right.
I think this is just a great time. They're thinking about who they're going to call to have those initial conversations, which real estate professional they're going to call, and I want to be at.
That's exactly why you're here, too. But also talk to them about your free consultation. This is not just a regular consultation that you do with them. Tell them what it is.
So, in specific, what I'm talking about is a buyer consultation.
Mm-hmm.
Sit down with a client or a potential client over a cup of coffee, over a glass of lemonade, something like that. Spend an hour and 15 minutes. I go over the contract, the disclosure statements, the Homeowners Association addendum. I give you a copy of that Arizona Association of Realtors buyer advisory. We talk about when you need the money, when you get the keys, the different loan options, why we like to choose a closing date on a Thursday as opposed to a Friday, if it saves you money toward the end of the month as opposed to doing it on the beginning of the month. There's just a lot of reasons why people have a ton of questions around this very complicated process.
And she's going to open up the line sometime so that you guys can call in and even ask questions, because she wants to help you guys out there. And her number to call, if you want to call her direct, is 602-373-0115. It's boldrealtyaz.com. She does work valley-wide. Now, we're talking Real Estate 101 today, right now, and we are talking about the 5 ways a buyer can get out of a contract. And it's very important, some of these things that she's talking about. We talked about the due diligence inspection. We talked about the loan approval, appraisal, HOA. How is that possible?
So if a property has an HOA, the Homeowners Association that covers it, the buyer is going to be given copies of the financials so they know how much money they're spending on an annual and a monthly basis. They're going to show them how much they have in reserves. If you're buying in a condominium where it's gated and it has a pool and they take care of the roof and the outside and everything, you want to know that Homeowners Association has a pretty big reserve or savings account because they've got big expenses. Whereas if you live...
I didn't know they disclose that kind of stuff.
They do. They have to.
I want to know.
And actually, there are some lenders who will ask for that information also because they want to make sure you're buying into a solvent HOA, because they don't want you to be making your payment and your HOA dues and then the HOA come back to you later and say, oh, we need more money. Your lender doesn't like to see that. So you also get a copy of the rules and the regulations that you're going to have to live by. Because I joke with people, because if you want to raise llamas and grow chickens in your backyard, you need to know that's okay with the HOA. Or if you've always dreamed of a pink front door, you need to know your HOA is going to be okay with that. Mm-hmm. If it turns out you now learn things about that HOA that are not workable with your world, we properly notify the seller that that is the reason that you're getting out of the contract. Send it to the escrow company, send it to everybody. You get your earnest money back. We're on looking for another house that will let you raise llamas.
Well, there's a lot of people out there right now looking to buy and sell. I can't even believe that it's almost the end of, it's mid-July. We're going to turn around. It's going to be August. School's starting, I heard. It starts in about 2 weeks, so it's amazing. And you got to get your ducks in a row in all your places and know where you want to live or where you're going to move to. So, again, you could call her direct at 602-373-0115. It's boldrealtyaz.com. Okay, title.
So of our top 5, this is probably the one that doesn't come up very often, but it does. So picture the scenario here. You've decided to buy a house. And the escrow company, who takes care of all the paperwork, the signatures, and pays off loans and all that kind of stuff to make sure that when you get the new deed, it's free and clear of all the seller's stuff that they had on it. They find out that the seller that you're buying from didn't pay the HOA for 2 years, and there's a $3,000 lien. What if they didn't pay the HVAC guy who installed their new unit 5 years ago, and he put a lien against the house? Well, guess what? In order to close the deal, those liens would have to be cleared up. And as well as the seller's regular mortgage, as well as making sure that the current real estate taxes are paid up. You know, those are the other things that title or preliminary title report looks for. But the biggies and why a buyer might be concerned about it is if there's a lien on there that the seller is either unwilling or unable to pay. The only other party involved in the contract is the buyer, at which point you as the buyer are going to say, it's not my fault you didn't pay your HOA for 3 years. I'm not going to take that on. Or it's not my fault you didn't pay ABC Air Conditioning Company. I'm not going to take that on either. We saw this happen in the crash. People were trying to walk away from their homeowners association dues, and they were saying, I'm not going to pay it. I'm losing the house. I'm not going to pay it. Well, those were a personal lien, and they ended up having to pay them eventually somehow. That's outside my expertise, but they did come down on them. But we had many homes where people were several thousand in arrears on their HOA. And so what this top 5 item gives you is the knowledge that if you ended up in a situation where this seller did have liens against the house that they were either unwilling or unable to pay, you weren't stuck being the one paying them.
Right. And that's important. And a lot of people at that time did. And are we finding that still again? Are people having trouble with their housing and all
This
that?
is a big time rare thing. This hardly ever comes up now.
Right.
In fact, I was at I think what you're asking is the distressed properties and all that. It's like, according to Tina Tambor with the Crumfer report, I think it was like 0.4%. So no. People call me and say, I want to buy a short sale. I'm like, there are no short sales out there. Yeah. There may be 6 in the whole valley.
Right. It's not the same anymore. Things are a little bit better out there, which is good. Right. So in your world, okay, is there still inventory? What's going on with that?
The inventory is there. It's a little bit tighter in certain price points. That under 4, I would say under 350 is tough. I have a client last week. We wrote an offer. They didn't get it. We wrote another offer. They didn't get it. The one they got was because my buyer had seen it as a coming soon on Zillow, and I did the homework, tracked down the agent through the MLS, not through the number that was available on Zillow, because I just went to Zillow and it tracked through, so I knew who he was. Found it and called him. He actually was on vacation with his family. He goes, can I call you when I get back? I'm like, do it. And he did. We got in to see the house. My client wrote an offer. Again, in competition, there was another buyer who had written it, but they wrote a strong enough one and were flexible enough with what the seller had and what they needed in the transaction that my client got it. But so it's been tricky.
Yeah. And so is it because when they say you didn't get it, is it because they're getting taken up? Are people buying that fast? Is it still like that out there?
Yes, I did a market analysis for one of my really good friends that I sold her a house, 12, 13 years ago. And when I was looking at the comparable homes in her area, just like hers, they had been on the market 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, 3 days, 2 days. I'm like, when you put this on the market, you may as well just go away for the weekend because the door is going to be constantly unlocked with agents coming to see it, and by the end of the weekend, we'll have it sold.
That's awesome. Now, you can call her direct at 602-373-0115. The website is boldrealtyaz.com. So what does it look like when somebody calls you and, the first thing you're going to do is have that wonderful, consultation with them? At that point, do you suggest that they go get their credit checked? Is it still about that? Do they start that way? What's the starting points that they go? They just drove by a house, they go, I would love to get that house. They call you.
So typically what I do is when they call me, one of the things I'll ask them is, have you had a conversation with a lender? And they'll either say, no, I just didn't know who to call. And then I work with several very fabulous lenders that get deals closed and that have the same mindset that I do, which is, I don't want our clients to be in a stressed out, messed up position the entire time they're trying to get the keys to the new house. I like it when my favorite lenders that I refer to sit down with the clients and say, here's what you're going to expect. Just like I do, I say, this is what to expect. This is how the process is going to go. This is what I need from you. Get it to them and move forward that way.
And
That
you know
helps.
what? When you get all of this information, when you know somebody that's going to take you step by step and make you understand each transaction of what's happening, not only you're going to be more comfortable, it's going to go smoother and probably faster. You could check her out on her website. It is boldrealtyaz.com. She's valley-wide. Her phone number direct, it's 602-373-0115. And you know what? One day she's going to have her own radio show. She's going to be teaching everybody this right on the air. Again, check her out. It is boldrealtyaz.com. Again, that number is 602-373-0115.